Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to be all about Legend Iblis and contain my first deathless solo clear. There's a lot of action in this battle, so let's jump into it right away. I'll share my thoughts and impressions as we go. Iblis here starts off with either Ballad of Hell or Ballad of Heaven. That's going to determine which of the two afflictions, Flash Burn or Paralysis, that you need to afflict him with equal to the number underneath his cloak HP bar. And so this time around he started off with Ballad of Hell, which means I'm going to need to cause Flash Burn. He then follows that up with Meticulous Combo, in which he uses a sequence of 3 red attacks, the order of which determines the follow-up purple attacks that he does, where you either need to be on the edge or sides of the arena or in the center. So a lot is happening in this fight right away. It's one of the most sequence-dependent fights, I think, where you really sort of just need to have anticipation and memorize the order in which things happen. We then get this move where we have 2 bats with countdowns that we have to defeat, and Iblis is now going to do one of 2 attacks with red and purple circles, nothing to be too scared of, followed with Lamenting Crescendo, which is a pretty scary attack as that can lethal you depending on your team composition, and it can be easy to accidentally move into the purple triangle area, even if you're trying to avoid it and know that that's going to happen. We then have that Sweeping Symphony, which can be iframed, and finally this Melodic Shift because we've inflicted Flash Burn the appropriate amount of times. Now we get into the second portion of the fight where instead of Flash Burn we need to paralyze Iblis, so I go ahead and Shapeshift with my Flash Burn enabler Laxi here since I really don't need her to be causing Flash Burn too much. I did want her for the Dispel there as Iblis buffed himself with a buff that reflected skill damage, so that was no good for me if I wanted to keep causing paralysis. I switch over to Annalie, and things are pretty fast and loose here, playing a little bit dicey, but with a character that's smaller in size like Annalie, unlike a Kimono Knot, let's say, you can easily just rotate around this circle as long as you don't touch any of the tornadoes or any of the edges there, you should be fine. And you have to really rapidly apply paralysis for that second affliction checkpoint, as once this next move ends, which is similar to the earlier difficulties of Iblis, where you have to pick out the correct bat, well, once this ends, Iblis is going to reappear, he's going to reapply Curse of Nihility to everyone, but right after that, he is going to switch over to the next ballad. And thankfully, we were able to get that last affliction off in time before the Melodic Shift. I change back over to Kimono Knot, and my main thing here is I want to have her in her kimono form as much as possible because she is a good damage dealer for me. If she's in her healer form all the time, it's going to take me way too long and I'll run out of time on the fight. Then we have this teleportation attack, which can be a little bit frustrating to deal with because the wind-up on some moves makes it so that Iblis warps away. You see it happen there. I was using my move to cause Flash Burn, but Iblis just got out of the way before Not actually landed it, which can be a little scary because once again, if you're not applying those afflictions at a fast enough pace, you can run out of time and Iblis will do a one-shot move that ends your entire run. So anyway, now we have this bat summoning attack. It gives us an opportunity to build up some SP, as the bats aren't really a challenge, especially for a big character like Not. But then we have to continue to apply Flash Burn here, and now Iblis is going to warp to the center of the arena after doing Corrosive Elegy, which we need to be mindful of because we are controlling our healer right now, and no one's actually actively healing us to prevent that creeping corrosion. But at the same time, we have this pressure that we also need to be Flash Burning with our Super Knot skill here, so it's pretty close, pretty dicey. I don't get to power up my skill there, my healing skill, by applying butterflies, but I get it off in time, and we barely make it before the Melodic Shift. Back to paralysis, so I switch. My shared skills here are Hunter Vanessa, and I'm also using Valix. Valix being able to apply both paralysis and Flash Burn. But really, as far as shared skills go, the cheapest paralysis option is going to be Sharina, and the cheapest Flash Burn option is going to be Halloween Laxi as far as the SP costs go. This time around, now that we've destroyed Iblis's cloak, this Piercing Oratorio, which can be pretty tough the first time around and honestly feels more comfortable to dragon tank your way through, well, this time around, now that it's red, it's a lot easier to deal with, and hopefully this time I'm a little more careful with these whirlpools or tornadoes, as it were, as well. and won't take too much excessive damage, even though it worked out fine for us last time. But I still need to be aggressively applying that paralysis to take down that counter, and luckily my Mitsuhide is backing me up here a little bit. I tried other characters before I was even able to get my first clear, like Civilian Leaf, Albert, and I'm sure some of them can work just fine. I tried Valix as well, was a little on the slower side with the afflictions despite having dual afflictions, so ultimately ended up switching to Mitsuhide. Her combo time, chain co-ability also felt very nice to have, just to enhance my damage output. We get the break, and it really feels like a lot of time has run off the clock, so my team so far has cleared very close to the time limit, and I'm sure some of that is inexperience with the battle, but I think that it might also be the characters I'm using not being the strongest for this. We get back to kind of the beginning sequence of the fight. One thing to point out about those red semicircle attacks is that they actually can curse you, so that's something to watch out for. But after them, of course, we get the second attack with the pattern of red moves. I'm staying inside, then going to the corner, and then going here to the side before returning back to the middle. And really, I'm not sure if I'm on pace to actually cause flash burn enough times before the next moment that Iblis will change the ballad, but I do think I'm on track to deal enough damage that Iblis gets to half HP and forces the second phase of the fight. Now it honestly looks pretty bad. Only about 3 minutes and 30 seconds are going to be left going into phase 2. We have this lamenting crescendo, which I always inadvertently walk into that kind of triangular area just rolling, so you do want to take a step back and be careful on that one. And then a different sort of sweeping symphony with some gaps in the way after we break the cloak. But finally we get to the second phase of the fight, and now we can bring out our wind element team, and things go so much faster in this phase. I think in part due to the Primal Dragon weapons, also just kind of the character composition. Basilius is a big help here, starting with the Sigil release, able to apply Stormlash, but because of the ballad that Iblis started with this time, I actually need to be applying poison to start things off. So Basilius and Not are there doing their damage, doing their thing, and Noelle is there to heal me, but I really need to focus just with Eleonora as my main poisoner, and Ronzel and Formal Joachim shared skills on Noelle as my secondary poison. I really need to focus on just rapidly applying poison, and luckily Eleanor is actually not too bad for this at doing that. She is able to get off enough poison in time, but the checkpoint for this is going to be right after this impenetrable round stops, so I still want to be pretty proactive with my poisoning here. I don't get another additional phase to get to apply extra poison. I really need to make sure that last shot gets off in time, and it does. Once that happens, I decide to switch to Not and control her after going ahead and popping off Dragon since I have them there. But I want to control Not because now I need to be applying Stormlash as the melodic shift takes place, and from there I control Not most of the rest of the way. Lamenting Crescendo happens, I try to get out of the way, immediately become Big Not again, but I didn't know that Dissonant Aria was going to happen right there, so that's not good. You need to dispel Iblis, otherwise your skills will deal damage to you instead of to Iblis. So I become Small Knot again since she can dispel. Unfortunately, I don't actually end up targeting Iblis. I target one of those small bats, but thankfully it seemed like either Formal Noelle or Basilius was able to get the dispel off anyway. Now we have some more teleportation. It's going to be followed up by the Whirlpool Rondo, and since Iblis restores his cloak in the second phase, we do have a purple component to it. Well, actually, his cloak is broken, but since we broke it, there's only one purple component. If it weren't broken, there would be multiple. But I feel like in the second phase, you can break the cloak pretty quickly, especially if you have Not on your team. We have this move here, where we take care of those smaller bats, and we're clearly getting very close to break. Thankfully, we make that melodic shift in time, because it was pretty close on the Stormlash side. But now I'm just trying to apply as much damage as possible with less than a minute left, and we somehow make it. I make a mistake toward the end, switching to Basilius, thinking that he had Gala Zephyr equipped, and that I was going to use Gala Zephyr for some burst damage at the end, but I actually forgot I gave him Gala Beast Volk instead, and fortunately it sort of worked out, but As you'll see, I ended up clearing with 1 second on the clock, so this was a pretty tight run. I had a lot of fun playing this fight, but I do think it's very demanding. I wouldn't say I have the best prints as far as Kaleidoscape or anything goes, but I do have some decent ones, so I do think the demands on this are pretty high. Maybe there are some better team compositions or strategies that are more effective, maybe more aggressive dragon use in the first phase with the light element. You know, transforming with whatever your off affliction characters are, who aren't really going to help you apply afflictions at that point in time. But yeah, I found this one to be challenging. I enjoyed it. I think it might be frustrating if you don't have those affliction enablers on your team. It really required a lot of planning on my part for the first time in a while in Dragalia Lost, where I had to sort of look up, okay, who can apply paralysis, who can apply flash burn. You know, characters like Annalie and Flora that I haven't touched in a while actually can apply paralysis pretty quickly, or Albert. So it made me rethink some of the characters I use most in the game. That is going to do it for today, though, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this quick look at Legend Iblis. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.